Welcome to BNEWS Weekly Special Report. I'm Phil Gallagher, along with my special guest today, retiring Building Inspector John Clancy. John, thank you for joining us.
How you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. I'm great.
Good to be here.
I know I'm getting old because when I was on the board, people that we appointed at that time, 35, 36 years ago, now are coming up for retirement. You've decided to go out at this point. What was some of the mitigating factors in your decision?
I think the biggest one was probably my health.
Mm-hmm.
I've been suffering for dealing with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis for 46 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And, have a good quality of life moving forth. Doctor recommended that. Really, I have a look at, if I can retire, that would lead to a longer and healthier life moving forth. So that's probably the biggest reason.
So you're in your 34th year?
Yes.
34th year. So let's do, this is your life, John Clancy. Let's do a genesis of how you arrived at this. Where'd you come out of high school?
I went to school in Billerica High. I graduated in 1976. Went right into Wentworth Institute. I got a building construction degree in 78. And from there, I decided to further my career, education. I went to architectural school. University of Arkansas. Reason I went there, I had a couple of family members going there at the time. Felt like home. It was a really good experience. Spent 4 years there. It was great. Finished that. I went to work with my father. He was a super for JF White Contracting.
JF White Construction, sure.
Large, heavy civil engineer. And in fact, I started when I was in high school with him, all working through high school and college. Spent several years there. Did a little bit of work on my own. And in '86, I interviewed for the job and was selected.
So this is a kind of a familial vocation.
Absolutely.
Straight line from middle school, high school, right into the business. Been there ever since.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was born and brought up in it. Like I said, my father was a super for 35, 40 years in the industry. Heavy, more of heavy construction, meaning roadways, civil, dams. He built Patriots' original Schaefer Stadium. Some large projects. So yeah, we had a good training from day one. So
you come into the municipal arena in '86. You come on as a part-timer?
No, I was full-time.
As assistant. Sorry, not
yes,
part-time.
Assistant, hired full-time in '86. Started January of '87.
Now, I've been here 64 years, and I think we've had 3 building inspectors in that time. Paul Johnston, Frank Moran, and yourself.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
So the benefits of that are obviously institutional knowledge. You can go back in the archives and see all of this stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. We've got a tremendous amount of material, all public information. Town has really kept a really good record of since really, we've got permits going back to the 20s and 30s in our files. So we can usually, if something comes in, we open up the file, get a history of it, get a sense as to, okay, how did it start out, what it developed over the years, what they want to do now, and we'll go through that whole history, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what is, people say the building inspector, well, inspecting what? What is the, from blueprint to occupancy permit, what is your role in the construction process?
Well, we're trying to make sure that the construction, whatever case may be, it could be as simple as a deck on the back of a house to a, several-story office building. It's really, we want to make sure that the construction meets code. Basically, we're a public safety entity and for the built environment. That's what I always tell people. And we want to make sure that, listen, codes evolved out of many catastrophes, the Coconut Grove fire, the nightclub fires you see, the Rhode Island, tragedy a few years ago. And codes are written around getting people safely in the building, safely out of the building, fire sprinkler system, fire alarm, fire protection systems. So we ensure that gets put in.
And keeping them standing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Give those folks, if need be, fire and police department a chance to get in the building, get people out. That's what it's really all about.
So
safety.
At what phases of a construction project, let's use, what's going up right now that's a big project? Well, the mall's going up.
Yeah, we got a mall project. We've got the apartment building over on Corporate Drive. But it all really boils down to, okay, in Burlington, like many other towns, has many approvals before we even get to the building permit. Right. In this town, you'll have the planning board, conservation, board of health, fire department, sometimes police departments. So we're really the last person that they come to. After they got all the other municipal approvals. We get a set of plans in, we make sure that's consistent with what the town board's approved. We run through it as from the building code compliance perspective. And then there's so many conditions from all the different boards of approvals, and we make sure that those are all met. Many emails are sent out, between department heads, make sure that everything's compliant, and then we issue the permit. And once we get the permit issued, there are a set amount of inspections. Excavation's always important when we do the footings, the foundations.
Okay,
the
so they're digging the hole, and you're right there when they dig the hole.
Absolutely.
That's job number one.
Absolutely, job number one. And some of these sites are pretty complicated. You'll have fill put in. Again, it has to be engineered fill, meaning that soils engineer has to design it, has to inspect it, they have to compact it. Make sure the right fill's put in.
Mm-hmm. The drainage.
Drainage, absolutely important, yeah. So it runs the gamut of what we're looking at. And what I did forget, we have to look at the zoning, setbacks, height. It varies from site to site because of different zoning districts.
Right, so zoning compliance, code compliance, et cetera. So you're looking at, right at the rebar. You're looking at the rebar.
Absolutely. We're looking at the foundations. First of all, we're looking at the excavation. Is there any, what they call organic material? Is there a loam in it? Right. Is there silty material in it?
Peat and things of that sort.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. We had some of that years ago.
Right on the corner of Middlesex Turnpike and Mall Road.
Yes.
Those two
yeah,
buildings.
all those buildings over there are on what they call, pile systems. I think that particular site you're talking about is down as much as, the piles are down as much as 90 plus feet.
Yeah, that was after the first one sunk, right?
Right, right.
There was new requirements after that.
No, it was absolutely new requirements, yeah.
And then it mysteriously caught on fire, too.
Yes, that was before my time. Yeah,
exactly.
Before my time.
Oh, goodness, I think that was the late 60s.
But we have it's funny you say it. We do have a lot of sites in town that has, difficult materials that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And, and over time we've had to deal with environmental issues, too.
Sure.
Working around
Northwest
that.
Park, South Side.
Absolutely. So a lot of these buildings have what they call a membrane system under the slab where they'll put in a vapor barrier, but it's more than a vapor barrier. It's sealed. There's either an active or passive air system that take the contaminants out. They get filtered.
Well, you did the high voltage site when they put the aeration site in, right?
Yes. So yeah, it was that was one of the bigger sites in town.
Now, just as a general question, how much space have you actually put up? What are we at now? 10 million square feet?
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
How much of that have you put up? You must be around the 6 or 7 million square foot range.
Yeah, I believe so. I think what we had built when I came to town was a couple of buildings at Burlington Woods. You had
New England Executive Park.
Down on Mall Road. The Kelly Company had stuff on the right-hand side going down towards the mall. Leahy Clinic just had the original building. But yeah, there has been, I would say, good 7 million plus square feet, and we've still got more to build.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And approved.
Sure.
By the way, absolutely, yeah.
So what do you think the crowning development achievement is for the town in terms of both value, aesthetics, and the professionalism of the town in accepting the development proposal?
Oh, that would be Sun Microsystems. Absolutely. We had a pretty vast site over there at one point. Little developed, actually, at the time.
The old RCA site.
Yes, RCA, and I think it was Raytheon after that, maybe?
GE Power Systems, I think, was there, too.
So, that was a multi-approved by different departments, including the state. They had to, they rerouted Middlesex Turnpike, went down through it, and I think that was really the wave of the future where Burlington was going. They brought in a lot of high-paying, high-quality jobs. improved access dramatically through that whole corridor, really, from the Mall Road, Middlesex, all the way up to Bedford Street to Route 3 and beyond. Now they're expanding more in Billerica now. But yeah, I would say that was, from a town perspective, we got they got all the boards together. They had joint meetings. I think that was really the start of where Burlington was heading in the future.
Well, and the subsequent unification of the parcels with Northwest Park
Yes.
on the Planned Development District. So now
Correct.
you have a unified, an entire side of the town under one development proposal.
Yeah, and there's still some more. I think there's 2 more office buildings to be built. One on there's a vacant parcel on the old Sun site, as I still call it. And there's a vacant parcel on the corner of 4th Ave in Middlesex out in front of
It's a rebuild.
Lifetime.
Lifetime Fitness Center,
Right.
sure. So there's also a bunch of rehabs that are going to be coming in there. That was another 2 million square feet potentially that could be added in
Yes,
there.
they're always, the developers sign up different companies. They're always remodeling. It's the same thing with the mall. I mean, they're going through a major, remodel. Sears, like a lot of places in the country, have closed. So they're going to expand the mall into the first or lower level of Sears and put some more specialty shops and some more restaurants. As everybody can see, the Sears Automotive Center was taken down, new building put up in its place.
Do you think we have the right mix? Is there too much now in the retail restaurant area? Is that gonna survive in the next downturns going forward? What's the next level for us? Is it life sciences, for instance?
I think it is. I think life science is, an area that I think the town's looking serious at. I believe they just approved an amendment to the bylaw to, further define what life science is. Burlington is a unique place because of its proximity to so many great colleges in town. I mean, that's really one of the driving forces. Talk to anybody in the industry, it's a driving force here in town is the collective pool of talent coming out of the university systems in Boston. And a lot of, and that sprawl is coming out from Cambridge, where they had life science, same thing in Waltham and in Lexington. So we're starting to see some of that here in town.
And our proximity, of course, to 93 and Route 3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so now it's not just a building, though. You also head up the plumbing,
Yes.
electrical,
Yeah,
etc.
we're a supervisor for all the other trades, being plumbing, gas, wiring. We do one of the things that came out of the catastrophe, down in Rhode Island was, the nightclub fire down there was the annual inspections. We've always done them for years and years and years. That was one of the priorities that I put in when I came in is, we were lacking, because it's just lack of help. I mean, it was just Frank, Moran, and myself. We started out, and we started picking away at that. We do.
Well, it was 5 people in '86, and there's
Right.
7 people now,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
we've really boned up there, haven't we?
Yeah, but we've boned up in fees and other things along the way too. As I'm sure we'll talk about.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think that was an important aspect that we caught up. We inspect everything from restaurants to schools to daycares to entertainment uses. We don't have a lot of that in town, but apartment buildings, hotels, things of that nature. So we're right up to date in all that stuff. And with the liquor laws change, with the sprinkler requirements, we're an integral part of that whole process now. Yeah.
So the whole influx of new eating establishments and liquor establishments has created a whole new set of inspections.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you were here on the board at the time. I think years ago, we had 23 liquor licenses, and I think given with all the different PDDs and special legislation, I think we're up to over 52 now,
Yeah,
I think.
so.
Somewhere in
when
that
you
area.
include clubs and whatnot.
Right, exactly, yeah. So it's big business. I don't know of one major chain that's not here in town.
Won't soon be.
Oh, won't soon be, but there's some attrition. We've had Chili's closed down. I think it was Macaroni Grill
Grill
closed
closed
down.
down,
Their
sure.
commitments to, I think, to obviously to redo those. ADV's is going in where Macaroni Grill was.
Well, I noticed too that Macaroni Grill had a location problem, but I see now that this new Eddie V's is, they knocked that building down. They're going to put up 10,000 square feet closer to.
Yes, that was part of the approval. Absolutely, they that was one of the things that they recognized, that the building was pushed back a little too far for some visibility issues.
Right.
Because it's not one of those sites that you can gain access. You can see it from Middlesex Turnpike, but you can't get there from
Right,
there.
right.
So you have to go around South Ave or Second Ave to get to it. So they thought by pushing the structure up closer to the street, there would be better visibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the fires, but what was the fallout from the North Andover natural gas debacle here? That certainly reverberated throughout the building inspectors in the Commonwealth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we had there was a big call out there for municipal aid help to Lawrence, Andover, North Andover. One of our part-time guys went up there. A plumbing inspector went up, a gas inspector went up to help him. Boy, it was not good for a while. Poor people were without heat. Hot water for months. There's going to be some, I think that's not settled yet. I don't know where it's going to go. I think that some more oversight on the public utility side would probably be seeing in the future.
Well, that's part of the crux of my question here is what kind of oversight do you have, other than the buildings, in their infrastructure, in cable, in telephone, in electricity, in gas? What type of oversight does the local inspector have in those projects?
Well, infrastructure in the street, public ways, zero.
Zero.
We have no. Once it gets onto the private piece of property, then we take jurisdiction over it. Yeah.
Right.
The connections into the building, the connections throughout the building. If you're doing, for example, an apartment building and there is multi-gas meters, we would get involved in that, inspecting, the whole building itself. But in the street, it's the Department of Public Utilities.
So in terms of the integrity of the distribution system, the source of the pressure, local outfits have no control.
No. Cities and towns have no control.
Amazing.
From a permitting or inspection process. It's done, Department of Public Utilities gives their license to, I think you'll see some kind of oversight.
Unbelievable.
I would think.
All right, so let's go back in your history and let's talk about mentors, your own personal mentors,
Sure.
who obviously, somebody in Pepperell or Dunstable wasn't going to provide John Clancy with the tools and the experience necessary to take on this job. So, obviously your dad played a major role in there. In the
Absolutely.
family.
Yeah, absolutely. He was number one. Just a great, great guy. Very street smart, construction-wise very smart, but really laid the foundations. And along with my mother, can't forget the mom out there.
No, of course.
But no, he really laid the foundation, the groundwork for not just how we do things in construction, but in life in general. I would say he was probably the major factor. I would say my Uncle Chris, my dad's brother, was probably another mentor. And, in the business, Frank Moran, obviously, took a young kid at the time, I was 28, knew a lot about construction, given the age, but really fortified and went through the process of how we do things public safety-wise. Yeah, he was a great mentor.
Well, one of the things we all know about the construction business and the hard hat crew is there's some hard characters in that business, some intimidating characters.
Yes.
How were you able to adapt that? Did that come natural to you to be able to stand on a construction site, somebody holding a sledgehammer telling you what he wasn't going to do and what he was going to do? How'd you come to grips with that?
I think you have to be very thick-skinned. Obviously, I get that from my dad, again. But I think you have to hold your ground. I think, common sense always prevails, as I say. You got to clearly explain to the individual what the issue is, how to resolve it, and what the steps going forward should be.
What if they aren't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. But yeah, and I think, good people want to do the right thing. But you have to hold your ground sometimes. Right. And, sometimes it gets legally daunting, and there's a lot of intimidation factors, but you got to hold your ground. You gotta hold your ground.
Well, now that brings
Absolutely.
us to the velvet hammer. On one side, you're dealing with this kind of a hard hat crowd, and on the other side, you're a political player. How did that work out for you over the years?
I think it worked out fine. Again, I think you're dealing with the public, whether that's first, you've got the landowners in town, whether residential, commercial, and I think you really you play it straight with them. Life's an open book. Anybody can look at and find the answer, especially with the internet nowadays. They can look up those answers pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So I think you play it very straight with them. You be honest with them, up front with them. And I think you develop some respect, and I think that's the guiding issue, really. Mm-hmm. Play it straight with people. Treat them fairly. Be fair with people.
Now you've been able to fly pretty well under the radar politically in terms of controversies, etc. But there's one that sticks out in my mind was which the planning board sued itself. They were both plaintiff and defendant. I believe it was on the Marriott self-contained units. How did that play out? You ultimately were backed up by the court in your decision.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And for the viewers watching, this is unscripted. So I told Phil, ask anything he wants to ask, and be happy to answer. No, I mean, again, as I said earlier, all the approvals in town, especially on the commercial side, are always, there are many levels of approval. If we go back and we look at that particular approval, it went through the conservation, it went through the Board of Health, it went through all the town boards.
And the planning board.
And if you look on the planning board approval, first or second page, it says the Marriott Residence Inn. Now, unless you've lived in Mars someplace, everybody knows what a Marriott Residence Inn is. Right. Mm-hmm. So when those plans came in, our job is is this consistent with what the town has approved from the different boards? And the answer to that was yes, it was. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think that's the particular reason why the courts upheld it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So this wasn't interpretation.
No.
This was flat out something that came out of the process, which so many other millions of square feet had come out.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. There's so many levels of approval here in town. It's very well looked at, very well looked at, no question about it.
Now let's talk about your budget. $700,000, I think, annually. Your budget will be up before the building
Not mine.
department. Yeah, right. That's right. It'll be up soon before the Ways and Means Committee. But there's an interesting contrast here, and I think if we go back, let's look at your fees. Back in 2004, you put up $175 million in construction costs.
Right.
And your fee income was $1.7 million. Now, how do we get $1.7 million dollars out of that? How does that happen?
Our fees are based on strictly construction values. So we charge, and we are actually one of the cheapest towns, I think, in the area. We charge $10 per $1,000 worth of value. Mm-hmm. So that's how we come up with that fee and associated cost to run the office. Given the amount of activity we have in town, in the level of types of construction, in the dollar amount of construction, we got some pretty high-end
stuff.
Stuff here in town. I mean, from $1 million house to, Leahy Clinic spending $3,000 or $4,000 a square foot to remodel things. Mm-hmm. Those costs add up quickly. I think last year, we permitted.
You permitted $376 million in costs.
Yeah.
And we took in $3.7 million, basically 1%, $3.7 million.
That's what it adds up to is 1%.
So you're the most profitable department in the town.
Well, I don't know if we're the most profitable.
Well, nobody else brought in 3 points, except the tax collector. But
tax collector and water sewer charges, yeah.
Right.
I think it's part of the team process. Mm-hmm. I can't say any more than that. I mean, we're just a small department, chugging along over the years, and Burlington is, like I said, is unique. It's come to us. Right. And again, we'll go back to the Sun Micro. That's what really started, was the Sun Microsystem project, and it's just taken off after that.
Right.
From
from accelerating development to highly accelerated development.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, each of the last 5 years was set records. And the big question is it going to end? I honestly don't see it. I don't. I think it'll have some leveling off at some point, but I think the town. I think we've got about $500, $600 million that's already on the books, already approved by the town boards.
Waiting to be put up.
Ready to be put up. Just looking for some tenants.
Right. And then on top of that, we've got all of the old inventory up in Northwest Park, B
Yep.
Street, A Street, and different parts in the town that are certainly, all the old Graham buildings certainly are up for rehab at some point in time.
Who would you ever think in this town 30 years ago that would see this?
How about 60 years ago?
Right. I mean, it really is amazing. I mean, I think the sprawl's coming out from those, I think we talked earlier, from Boston, Cambridge, and other places. Yeah.
Well, in 1957, we had a couple of big snowstorms, and all the kids had an off day from school, and we sledded down the IGA Hill, what used
Absolutely.
to be the IGA Hill.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know.
I mean, I think, in some ways, what's made a real difference in town over the years? I think the conscious decision by the town in the early 70s to provide water and sewer town-wide. I mean, it was a mess here. Everything was dug up for a couple of years, but think about the cost that the town has saved. Yeah. I mean, obviously $1972 or nothing compared to $2019, and they did it in, but at the same time, we cleaned up a lot of sites.
Right.
You weren't dumping sewer and, into the ground. I mean, yeah, so that, and I think development of the Mall Road providing easier, better access to that commercial district, as they call it, I think really was the forefront of things.
Well, in 56 decision too, I think in the warrant in 56, there's an article for $100 for two welcoming signs for business in Burlington on 62 and up here on Route 3A.
And just to give you, time passes by, but I was looking at a deed. This is several years ago. There was a deed for where the Burlington Marriott is from, I think it was Cambridge Street all the way to the Lay Clinic, and I think TRW on a portion of it. But they sold it back in the early 60s for that whole piece of property for like $50,000.
Great. Who would have thought of that?
You can't get a kitchen done for that nowadays.
Right. And if
Who would ever thought?
If you could have bought one of the pig farms dirt cheap, in those days, you both got good soil for your lawn, and you could put up $1 million home.
But yeah, I mean, what's driving it now? I think it's people want to be here. Residential-wise, people want to be here. It's whoever thought we'd have most houses being built now, $1 million houses.
Well, low taxes, good school system, a lot of services,
absolutely.
No fees.
I agree. Yeah,
it's
in its location. I mean, it's a pain to get into Boston in the morning and then come out in the afternoon, but you're about 18 miles from downtown. It's pretty sweet.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'd like to thank my guest, retiring building inspector for 34 years, John Clancy. John, thank you.
Thanks, and anybody want to blame me, see Phil, because he hired me, I think, back in 86.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's it from the news desk here at BNEWS Weekly. Thank you for joining us.